What's up, YouTube? Today, SSD Productions is back from a long delay, and today we're going to be starting it back up with a review of the Sega Saturn system. The Sega Saturn was released around 1995-94ish. The system was a 32-bit system. This is Sega's third system on the market. Fourth if you count the SG-1000. But this was the third system released worldwide. It's a pretty powerful system for its time. Some of the interesting features about this system: it's disc-based. Works pretty well. It's well built. Your power button, open, close, reset. On the front, you have two controller ports, which was standard at the time. And on the back here you have a cartridge slot. This does not play Genesis games. This is actually for a memory card sort of device to add memory. The system has some built-in memory, not much, but it does have built-in memory. You unfortunately have to replace it every so on when the battery dies. Back of the system you have a door here. I'll show you that in a minute. Some information. And on the side you've got your power cord, which is the same exact power cord as a Dreamcast and a PlayStation 2. And you got your AV multi-out. You also have your communications connector. I believe that was an add-on device. One second. On the back of the system inside here, this is where the internal memory battery is. There's also, what some people don't realize, there is also an expansion slot in here. And in here, you can actually plug in a little card that you can use to, it allows it to play video CDs. When I bought this thing, I didn't even know this was in it. I just found out in the bag, but it's a little device. You can play video CDs with it. Interesting. It just, it plugs in the back here, and it just locks into place. When the system came out, it was quite powerful for its time. It had a lot of features to it, which kind of were the reason for its downfall. For one, it had two central processors. And this was, most people believe, it was a precaution when they found out about the power of the PlayStation 1. So they added an extra processor, and like this, when this was originally developed, it was supposed to be basically a souped-up 2D machine, which it still is, and its 2D games are absolute gold. But, so they added a second processor in to give it some extra power. And because of this, it made it hard to program for. It wasn't the easiest. There were 6 processors in this thing, one of which was actually for sound. So if you actually had a pretty decent stereo system, you could actually get some pretty good sound out of this thing. Games are not bad. There are some really good ones, like Daytona USA. Virtual Cop. Virtual Fighter 2. Sonic 3D Blast. This game debatably can be called good. It's an enjoyable game. It's much better than the Genesis version, especially if you have the 3D analog pad. It's an overall good game, I'd say. And Sonic R. This game's love it or hate it. Some people really like it. I like it personally. I think it's kind of fun. But other than that, your call on this one. It's actually really fun. Ironically, there was no mainstream Sonic game on the thing. There was like 3 Sonic games. There was Sonic R, Sonic 3 Blast Saturn version, and Sonic Jam, which was kind of like a compilation pack, which had a little 3D world you could go around in. But there was supposed to be a Sonic game called Sonic Extreme. Unfortunately, it went through development hell and never saw the light of day. The controller for this thing, there were 3 main controllers for this thing. The most common controller is probably the 6-button Model 2 controller. In many ways, this controller pretty much just looks like an upgraded 6-button Genesis controller. It's got the same nice D-pad. This is a third party, but they pretty much look the same, and they add shoulder buttons. On the original controllers, the shoulder buttons were awkward, and they didn't feel that great. They didn't click in. The buttons were kind of awkwardly placed. This controller, the real ones, they feel really good. They handle pretty nice. They're well built. Later on, they came out with 3D pad, analog stick, D-pad, 6 buttons, and triggers. This controller, if you have a Saturn, get this controller. It makes the game so much more enjoyable at times. It makes Sonic R slightly more enjoyable. Daytona USA is so much easier to control. Sonic 3D Blast is fun to play. It's an overall good controller. Pretty much it's precursor to the Dreamcast controller in many ways, although it has a better D-pad. Hey guys, I'm just going to show you some quick gameplay footage of a Sega Saturn real quick. Sorry about the poor camera quality. I don't have a capturing card right now, so this is the best I can do at the time being. Sega Saturn was a powerful system at its time. It really was. The graphics aren't horrible. They're pretty. Some 3D games were a little rough, but a lot of them are really well made. They're pretty on par with the actual system. Just boot her up real quick. I'm going to show Daytona USA. This is the Championship Circuit Edition. It's got different music, pretty much. Just boot her up. Produced by Sega. This console was affected by a really poor launch. They tried to get out early by releasing it before the actual launch, but it backfired on them, and it didn't go as well as they had hoped, unfortunately. Shame too, this was actually a really good system for the time. So here's Daytona USA. Now, the game looks a little rough compared to today's standards, but this is a pretty damn good looking game. This is one of the better looking Saturn games. So it's your basic racing game, essentially. Pretty much, it's an early NASCAR game. Go with the 3.7 Speedway.
Gentlemen, start your...
For how early this game was, this game is a rather well-programmed game, and it plays pretty damn well. Now you control your car with the L trigger. I'll give a more detailed review later on of this game, but you essentially control the point of the game is to get to first place in the race. You start in last, and you control your car with the L trigger, well actually the R trigger, and you steer with the analog sticks or D-pad, depending on what controller you're using. You can change the setup if you're not close. But essentially, it's your standard racing game. I'm failing. Ah, crap. The game handles very well. It's not bad. The Saturn had some really good games. It's a shame it didn't last as long as we hoped. But then again, we may have never gotten the Dreamcast if it lasted as long as it did. Or the Dreamcast could have been entirely different. Because when this thing failed, essentially they went straight to the Dreamcast. But, no, it's a really good system. There's nothing wrong with it. Really fun. Do I recommend buying one? Yeah. If you're a real hardcore gamer and you want to try out a old school Sega system, get the Saturn. Or the Genesis. Really, the Saturn is awesome. A lot of great games. Basically, it just went out before its time. This has been CTV Game Reviews, and I'll leave you to Daytona USA. Peace.